This week on The Destination Angler.
You know what? I started this question off in a cheeky manner, but it's about as remote as you can get.
Yeah, it sounds like it. There's no roads up there. You're taking float planes in.
Yeah, there's no roads. There's no people. There's no other outfitters. It's one of the only places I can think of on planet Earth where there is truly, very little footprints or handprints or mark of man aside from us.
And that was Jake Daly on the Spatsizi Wilderness. Welcome to the Destination Angler Podcast, the podcast for anglers who travel. And I'm your host, Steve Haigh. We go right to the source, the local guides and experts, to build your knowledge of top fishing locations around North America. It's a big world out there. Now go and fish it.
I'm going away for a while, but I'll be back soon. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hey anglers, welcome back to another episode of The Destination Angler, brought to you by Adamsbuilt Fishing Gear, the trusted source for quality fly fishing gear built to last at an affordable price, and by Angler's Coffee, fueling your next cast with amazing coffee delivered to your doorstep one batch at a time. Get started today and save 20%. And by Got Fishing, crafting world-class fly fishing adventures specially designed to your level of experience and budget. And by Trout Routes, the #1 fishing app, helping trout anglers avoid the crowds and explore new public water. Download it for free in the App Store today. Up next on The Destination Angler, we explore Montana's remarkable turnaround story, the Clark Fork of the Columbia River. After that, we venture to the Youghiogheny River in western Pennsylvania in pursuit of giant brown trout on the fly. And be sure to backcast to catch the last episode on the Border Brule River in northern Wisconsin for wild brookies and browns. Hey, if you like the show, please give us a share, like, or follow, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Have you had a chance to check out my new podcast yet? The Destination Angler Adventures podcast is the podcast about life and fly fishing, where we put you, the angler, center stage to tell your stories and share your adventures. Hey, drop me a line. Let me know what you think. You can also find the Destination Angler podcast on YouTube, so check that out when you get a minute. And today our destination is the unspoiled Spatsizi Wilderness Park in northern British Columbia. Our guide for this journey is none other than Jake Daly, seasoned fly fishing expert and manager of Spatsizi River Outfitters. Roadless and uninhabited, Spatsizi is 2 million acres of wild, rugged, and remote wilderness unchanged by man, offering some of the best fly fishing on the planet. Jake's roots trace back to nearby Smithers, BC, but his passion for fly fishing and guiding took him far and wide across the West. Eventually, in his 30s, he returned to his hometown, living in his parents' basement for a time, guiding steelhead and honing his skills until he found his calling at Spatsizi River Outfitters. Today, Jake shares his adventures of double-digit bull trout, bears wrestling in boats, the largest manhunt in BC history, and how the Collingwood brothers founded the operation after landing 126 trout on 126 casts. Stick around to the end for a shore lunch tip like none other: how to cook trout in a frying pan made from an artic birch tree. No joke. Let's hear from Jake. Well, hey, folks, I've got Jake Daly here on the line and super excited to talk about Spatsizi. This is a wilderness area that, I got to be honest, I'd never heard of it until one of my listeners reached out to me and said, hey, I'm going to this really cool place next year, and you ought to check them out. So I started looking into this and bumped into Jake, who's runs the lodge and takes guys fishing every day up there, and it sounded awesome. So I'm really excited that you guys are going to get a chance to hear about this place because it sounds pretty incredible. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me on. It's super fun.
Yeah, for sure. So you are where today? You're in a little town in northern BC, aren't you?
Yeah, quaint little town of Smithers, BC. People call it northern BC. If you know Canada, way on the left, the furthest left province, it's called British Columbia. We're about halfway up. And town's about 5,000 people, and it sits on the Bulkley River, which is kind of famous in the steelhead world. It's a tributary of the Skeena watershed. And so, yeah, I'm just at my place. I was telling you before we started recording, I've been kicked into the guest room here to have a chat with you.
All good. It's all good. So one of the things you told me when we talked a couple of weeks ago, what you like to do in the summer I was really surprised by that. you like to go surfing, don't you?
Well, I wish it was in the summer, Steve, but it's actually the best waves hit the coast here in the winter. And
In the
so
winter?
yeah, that's where I just came back from to do a little film work here in Smithers. But yeah, my wife Emma and I, we spend a lot of time on Haigh, which is an island off the coast of British Columbia, not far from here. And yeah, that's where I just came from, and I think where we first connected. And yeah, it's freezing. You can skate on the lakes, and there's snow and winter storms coming in, but it's also a good time for surfing if you've got a thick wetsuit and
Man,
and you feel like hopping in the ocean.
that's hardcore. How are the sharks that time of year?
Well, you sound like Emma. She's always talking about sharks. I try to avoid the topic.
Don't even want to talk about it. They're in there then, huh?
Well, okay, I gravitate to facts that I like. And one fact I heard is that, yeah, like great whites, that's the one we would see, I guess, that you'd worry about chewing on your leg. And they don't come up in numbers as far as we are, I don't know, just their territory, I guess. Down in Washington or Oregon or California, you run into people that have like straight up shark attack stories like pretty regularly. But
Really?
yeah, up in Haigh, I don't know. I'm surfing with a clear mind.
You got 2 legs to prove it.
Yeah, I've got all my digits, and so far so good.
5 fingers in both hands and everything. Okay, that's good to
Yeah.
hear. All right, so for those folks who have never heard of Spatsizi, just how remote is this area?
I guess it's a matter of perspective, Steve. A long time ago, there were people that lived there. So it was home to them. And for me and folks in Smithers, it's kind of in our backyard. It's a, depending on what kind of float plane you're in, it's about a 2-hour float plane ride north of Smithers. And so folks that are coming to visit us, they'll fly in. Usually, if they're from out of the country, they'll fly into Vancouver. Then they'll catch another flight up to Smithers, and then they'll hop on a float plane 2 hours north. You know what? I started this question off in a cheeky manner, but it's about as remote as you can get.
Yeah, it sounds like it. There's no roads up there. You're taking float planes in.
Yeah, there's no roads, there's no people, there's no other outfitters. It's one of the only places I can think of on planet Earth where there is truly, very little footprints or handprints or mark of man aside from us. And yeah, it's a privilege to be up there, and it's something that you kind of have to immerse yourself in and experience to fully understand.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me a little bit about the scenery up there, because I've been online and looked. I mean, it looks absolutely spectacular. I got to believe it blows your clients' minds as they're flying in on these float planes and looking at this.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So it's the Spatsizi Plateau Provincial Park. It's named for this plateau, and it's an interior kind of alpine plateau. So when you fly from Smithers, you're flying through some pretty ragged, high peaks, 6, 7, 8,000 foot peaks. And basically you fly up the Skeena drainage, you tip over into the headwaters of the Stikine where we're at. And then sort of right where our lodge is up at the top, the terrain kind of flattens out.
Okay.
You can look to one side and you'll see just the most epic mountains you've ever seen, crawling with goats and caribou and all kinds of stuff. And then you look the other way and it's just these insane flat kind of tabletops, really unique terrain and scenery and ecosystem. And yeah, it's a big country. I mean, it's hard to describe it because it's 2 million acres. It's twice the size of Yellowstone. And
Really?
we're basically talking about a substantial chunk of British Columbia that we access, with float planes. And sure, we'll get into the whole thing, but you can't really describe it because it's multiple regions within within this huge zone.
Yeah. It sounds like a combination of kind of super rugged and then some plateau stuff. Then obviously you've got, imagine in every drainage, you've got a trout stream.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, there's tons of drainages. We're in I'm a rambler, so rein me in if you need to, but we're in this zone it's been sort of nicknamed the sacred headwaters, and by an author and conservationist, Wade Davis. And that name stuck because of just, I guess, the importance of the region. And it's kind of a catchy name, but the right where we're at is the headwaters of the Stikine. But just over the hill from us is the very headwaters of the Skeena, another really
Sure,
iconic
very
major
famous.
system. Right, exactly. And then, over a couple other ranges within 10 kilometers, you got the headwaters of the Nass, which drains out into the Pacific just north of the Skeena, another huge system. The Stikine, obviously, a Pacific drainage that wraps around and dumps into the Pacific up by Wrangell, Alaska. But then, just I guess east of us is the divide where all systems head north, and we've got tributaries to the Arctic.
Oh,
So,
cool.
from an angling perspective, there's so many different zones, and then you can pick apart each one of those drainages and kind of get more granular. And in each thing, it's kind of like it's just really neat to see all these different environments that are existing and evolving separate from each other. And it's crazy, man. If you're an
Yeah.
angler, it's a candy store.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'd be a kid in a candy shop for sure.
Absolutely. You're going to have to come up. I told you before, you're going to have to come up.
Got to save my money and do a trip to Smithers. That sounds pretty awesome. Never been to BC. It's definitely on the bucket list. I've done a couple shows with folks from BC, and it sounds like an absolute mecca. And it's a huge province. It's bigger than Texas. Everybody in the States, it's Alaska, then Texas, and everything else. And you guys are not as big as Alaska, but you're bigger than Texas. So
Right. Okay. Wow. That's crazy.
a lot of land.
Yeah. It's a big old piece of land, and yeah, there's some really many special spots in it, but the Spatsizi sure is one.
All right, so tell me about the fishing, because some of the things I've read and talking to you, it's supposedly great dry fly fishing. You guys are fishing a different river every day. Some of these rivers maybe haven't seen an angler all year. Is all that true?
Yeah. I mean, totally. We don't even touch all the rivers and all the spots that you can access in a given year. So sometimes you're going to a spot that hasn't been fished for several years. Obviously, the spots closer to the lodge will hit them more regularly. The window to fish up there is pretty small, actually.
Yeah.
We usually head up mid-June to kind of get the camp going and set everything up and see, how much bears got into and what broke and what froze, and try and fix it before people show up. Usually first clients are last week of June. But I remember it, not this year, but the year before, we were flying in, we tipped over into the Stikine. We're like within 10 kilometers of the lodge, and the lake just above us was still a skating rink. So it's like, oh my, are we even going to be able to land on Last Louis?
Really?
Yeah, it was like that tight. But so we start fishing as soon as we can. And, the insects at that time of year are not as plentiful and airborne and on the surface. So sometimes it's kind of a slow start to start, get the fish looking up. And, they're doing their spring thing. They all have different activities, the different types of fish and in the different systems. But yeah, it starts a little slow with the dry fly, but there are advantages to those early weeks, big time. But then kind of as you move into a little bit warmer weeks, into that start of July, mid-July, and right through July, the bugs just start going crazy. Everything starts hatching. And then, yeah, it's just totally bonkers. We basically, once we start, we encourage people just to fish dry fly, and unless times get crazy or you're trying to work on something specific, yeah, it's 90% of the time we're fishing dries.
Are you? What kind of fish do you have up there?
I guess traditionally the fish that most people come up for is the rainbow. We've got a bunch of different types of rainbow, different strains, and so that's traditionally the sport fish that people are excited about. We also have Arctic grayling in a few of the spots that we go to, which are really a beautiful fish. I don't know if you've seen those, or I'm sure you have, but they've got that beautiful fin and kind of like a whitefish in appearance. Those are really, really neat. And we get some nice size grayling, but more and more, I think maybe because the guides have myself included, have sort of been super excited about it. More and more the clients are showing up excited to chase bull trout. And bull trout are sort of the top. They are the top of the aquatic food chain. And there's so much to learn about their behavior and their life history and the different groups of them. And they just roam around and they get humongous and they grow old and they're predatory and aggressive. And so it sort of depends what you're into, but those are primarily Arctic grayling, rainbow, and bull trout are the three fish that we're setting out after on any given day.
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So up there, it sounds like you can target bull trout. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think if there are a couple of spots we go where there are not bull trout.
Okay.
And that's fun too, right? Because bull trout alter what the rainbow populations and grayling populations look like. So sometimes it's fun to go to a spot where there's no big bull predators chowing on rainbow.
Yeah.
But most of the spots, I would say, the majority of spots that we go to, you have a shot at really big bull trout. And they're either there or they're not. But once you see one, there's a good chance that you're in a school of them, because they kind of move around in a pack, sort of like a pack of wolves. And so once you find them, it's pretty neat to see if you can see a couple of them, and just for the sake of like learning more about them, like, okay, how many are in this pack? There's usually like a largest one, like sort of like the leader of the pack. There'll be the big one, and they all sort of follow it around. And on any given season, we can kind of get tabs on where the different groups of bull trout are, roughly. And it's fun to see how they react to the different conditions throughout the summer. And so, yeah, it's fun. It's just a big, crazy, beautiful world up there. And it's fun to observe it and see what all these fish and animals do when there aren't a bunch of humans mucking it up for them.
Exactly. Are you an avid angler in search of top-notch fly fishing gear that's easy on the wallet? Well, look no further than Adamsbuilt Fishing Gear. Adamsbuilt is the ultimate choice for anglers who prioritize quality, affordability, and style. Established in 2014, Adamsbuilt has been the trusted companion for thousands of anglers, creating unforgettable moments on the water. Seasoned pros and beginners alike will love their lineup of lightweight and durable waders and wading boots, high-quality nets and fly rod starter kits, and meticulously designed fly boxes and outerwear. When I first heard about Adamsbuilt, I have to admit I was a bit skeptical. Having run through many pairs of waders over the years, I wondered about their guarantee. So get this, folks, all Adamsbuilt branded products are guaranteed to last, and Adamsbuilt waders carry a lifetime repair or replace guarantee. You only pay shipping. Hard to beat that. So why not make Adamsbuilt Fishing Gear your go-to choice? Check them out at a dealer near you or at adamsbuiltfishing.com. That's Adamsbuilt Fishing, the trusted source for quality fly fishing gear. Hey folks, Angler's Coffee wants to fuel your next cast with great coffee delivered to your doorstep, one batch at a time. Anglers has been hard at work making great new coffee blends, such as the Stimulator Blend. This high-octane coffee has a delicious smoky flavor with 25% more caffeine. Sometimes you just need a little extra kick in the morning before you wet a line. Or how about the Rainbow Blend? Colorful and bright, this medium roast draws inspiration from the vibrant traits of the iconic fish. Much like the rainbow trout's vivid hues, you'll experience flavor reminiscent of the brilliant colors the trout is named for. And if you like it dark and bold, check out the Brown Trout Blend. This roast brings the spirit of the elusive brown trout with rich, dark chocolate notes, boldly intertwined with subtle smokiness, mirroring the rugged landscapes of the deep waters where brown trout thrive. And with every sip of Angler's Coffee, you support great conservation groups and charities such as the Mayfly Project. So head on over to anglerscoffee.com and fuel up today. Take 20% off your first subscription order by entering the code BREW20 at checkout. So are you actually spotting these bull trout and then sight fishing the bull trout with a dry fly, or are you throwing a big chunk of meat at them like a stream?
They'll come up for dries.
Really?
Yeah, big time. They'll come up for little dries. Just sort of depends what's going on. Usually what'll happen is you'll be at a spot and you'll be fishing a school of rainbow, and the commotion from catching a few rainbow will draw the attention of the bull trout. And the bull trout will come in like, oh, there's like something's going on, right? Something's getting attacked, something's injured, something's eating something, and I want to get in the mix. And so you'll be hanging out at a spot, you'll catch a few fish, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you can see them come right in like to your feet, and you're like, okay, that's like a double-digit bull trout. And basically, well, myself and all the guys were on the program where, we'll get guys coming up and bringing their trout rods with them. But then we'll bring like dedicated bull trout rig, a little bit bigger stick, like a 6 or
Yeah.
whatever, 7 with a sink tip and like a heavier leader, 12-pound leader or 15 or whatever. And, a nice weighted streamer, and we'll just have it with us, have it in the boat, have it around. And then
Really?
if things start happening, you're like, okay, take this,
Switch it.
like go. And it's pretty fun.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Some people, you got to really twist their arm because it's not really an elegant or enjoyable casting experience.
Right.
But once you hook into one, people get pretty zoned in on it. It's pretty cool.
What's in a season? What's the, what kind of, what size bull trout are you guys pulling in during the season? Like big ones, average ones, that kind of thing.
Anything over like 6 or 7 pounds, it'll be like, oh, sweet, that's a nice one. But then it steps up. They're sort of in like they're sort of almost like grouped. Like you'll have smaller ones like juveniles that are maybe like a pound or something. Then you'll have lots of them that are maybe like 3 or 4 pounds, and then you kind of step it up to kind of like a I don't want to state things. I don't know 100% for sure, but I think like maybe that 5-year-old that's and plus that gets into the 7 pound, 6, 7 pound range. And then the really special ones are double digits. So anything,
nice.
Over 10 pounds is exciting. I've got myself and clients that I've been with have got, well over honest 15-pound bull trout. And last year, wow. Unfortunately, I wasn't involved in this one, but there was, like a over 20-pound bull trout. So
they get big.
Yeah, they get big and they grow really old. That fish should be near 20 years old.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah, they're endlessly fascinating.
How long is a 20-pound bull trout?
32, 30. It's like pushing, it's like over 30 inches. Jeez. And, okay. And then it just gets like fat. They start morphing, once they get over 10 pounds, once they kind of get into that later stage of life, they start taking on different colors. So you'll see green ones, you'll see silver ones, you'll see like kind of yellow ones, gold ones, and they get really kipey. They get big, like gnarly heads.
Yeah, sure.
And they show their kind of scars, right? Their heads are all, I'm gonna say it, they kind of got like a patina from their time in the land, right? 20 years of just rooting around for things and fighting.
Tough life.
It's gnarly, man. And so like some of the lakes where we have the biggest bull trout, the rainbow are maybe, not as big. There'll be like lots of rainbow in that 10 to 12, 14, 16 inch range. And, we don't keep the bull trout here because they almost got fished to extinction in BC previously. So they're not on the keep them list. And we're a, catch and release fishery, obviously. But, inside the gut of these big rainbow or big bull trout are, there can be up to like 6 full rainbow trout in there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's just, they're totally crazy. They just eat entire rainbow trouts. Another wild thing is you can catch a rainbow trout and be playing it, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden your rod just bends in half and your rainbow trout is like on a 100-meter run and there's nothing you can do, but it's been eaten by a bull trout.
Yeah.
And so it's just this exhilarating, mysterious, it's just this like fascinating, like predatory.
I think I saw a video on your website where somebody was fishing and a bull trout came along and chowed his rainbow, and
right.
They got a kick out of that. I think they actually thought that was pretty cool. Do you usually get those fish in? Like you usually catch that bull trout who's grabbed your rainbow, or do they usually let go?
Kind of a mixed bag. I'd say more often than not, they let go.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's very common to catch a rainbow that has, teeth marks on it from that season or seasons prior. You get them and they're all just scarred up. Like literally they've been, someone's sandwich a few times.
Yeah. And, oh my gosh.
It's a jungle down there, Steve.
I wonder if the rainbow that have bull trout around are a little hardier and fight a little harder because they're kind of on the run all the time.
Yeah, I don't, that's a kind of a cool theory. Yeah, totally. I mean, they're definitely looking over their little fishy shoulders. I tell you what, it's like,
yeah, but
pretty wild.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the rainbow fishing. So that's kind of like maybe the star of the show. I always think of British Columbia. That's where rainbows are from, and rainbows from all over the world came, pretty much from British Columbia, or the people in California will tell you they're the McLeod red band rainbows are the most distributed rainbow in the world. I don't know. But anyway, they're all from out that way. What do people love about rainbow fishing? What do you think?
It's a good question. I mean, it's a beautiful fish. You couldn't
It
paint a
is.
more beautiful creature, right? It's just the different colors and the iridescent nature, and also the variety, the different ways that different strains are spotted and the different sizes that they grow. I mean, from an angling perspective, they fight like crazy. They're eager to take a dry. The thing that I find interesting about them is there's a lot to learn, right? They're different. Before I went to Spatsizi, I was just, trying to catch a fish, and, you try and figure out what would work, and you get the fish, and you're like, okay, that's how you get the fish here. Awesome. But fishing up in Spatsizi is kind of interesting because there's so many fish. They haven't, seen a lot of flies, and you can kind of crack some new codes on like, okay, they're not all the same. They're not all behaving the same, whether it's like different ages or in different temperatures or different parts of the season or different tribs. So I think one of the funnest things about fishing for rainbow is trying to crack the code and just see how they're all different.
Interesting. With so much information out there, it can get downright confusing and even overwhelming to find the right fishing adventure. Sorting through all the options and fees can be quite the headache. Well, not anymore. I'm super excited to introduce Got Fishing. Got Fishing is a boutique booking agency for world-class fishing adventures around the world. They ensure that you are on the exact fishing trip that meets your skill level, budget, and desired experience. Whether you're a seasoned angler or new to the sport, Got Fishing's personalized service will help you decide which adventure is the best fit for you, your group, or even your business. Worry about fees? Worry no more. With Got Fishing, you won't pay anything extra because their services are entirely free for you. You see, Got Fishing exclusively partners with highly reputable outfitters who gladly compensate them for their services, ensuring a win-win situation. Explore the range of fishing adventures and learn more about the services Got Fishing provides at gotfishing.com. That's www.gotfishing.com. And check them out on Instagram, too. Do you struggle finding new trout streams to explore? Tired of stumbling around country roads looking for access points? Looking to escape the crowds? Then look no further, because Trout Routes has meticulously mapped and classified over 50,000 trout streams covering the entire lower 48, including 350,000 hand-curated public access points marked and ready for you to explore. I'm a huge fan of Trout Routes because they make it so easy to explore new trout waters. Many times, Trout Routes has helped me find new public water and get into fish fast. And the good folks at Trout Routes have been busy this winter making Trout Routes even better. Enter Stream Cards 2.0, the latest iOS release that brings together more info at your fingertips by organizing data like stream flows, access laws, nearest fly shops into easily accessible tabs for every river and stream in the app. Planning a trip? Well, you'll love the advanced filter features that let you hone in on top-rated streams, boat ramps, camping spots, and more. So what are you waiting for? Start exploring today by downloading Trout Routes on your Apple or Android phone. So as you're going to these different rivers, I always feel like when I go to a new river, it takes me a little while to get dialed in. It may take a couple days in some cases. Obviously, you guys are up there for a while, but sort of what's the conversation you're having with your anglers in the morning as you're heading out, particularly early in the week when they're first up there?
Right. Yeah. So that's a funny kind of evolution of attitudes and conversations, right? When people first get off the plane, they're kind of like twitching out and they're super anxious and they just like can't wait to like let's go. Like they're just like waiters on, what kind of fly, what kind of whatever, let's go. And I guess like when anglers first show up, we try and get them into fish right away, and try and give them a little bit of intel on where we're at in the season in each different spot, right? Like what's hatching, what are they eating, what's working, also where are they? The concentrations of rainbow move around throughout the season, but also season to season. Some of our best spots will be like totally empty the next year, and vice versa.
Really?
So basically, we've got our favorite flies. but you bring out some big stuff, you bring up some small stuff, you bring a couple streamers just in case, and some nymphs just in case you get desperate. And then you try and bring as much stuff as you can. And then often you work together to crack the code. But yeah, throughout the season, I guess typically, early in the season, you're going to want to be smaller, and you're going to want to be a little, things are a little spookier and selective.
Oh, really? Early in the season, they're spookier earlier and smaller. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I don't know. There's no real rule, but I would say earlier in the season. Yeah, earlier in the season, especially to get them to come up for a dry, you're taking a more careful approach, and you've got longer leaders, and you're maybe switching flies more to try and figure out what's going on. Are you really paying attention? And then as you get deeper into the season, the amount of bugs and the type of bugs, and just like the density of and variety of insects just blows up. And yeah, and then we can talk insects and flies all you want, but just like put on a big piece of foam and like whatever, let's just cruise around and see what's out there. It kind of gets crazy.
So they're not that selective. Is that what you're saying? They're usually not that selective.
Or there's just so many fish, and there's so many different insects that something's going to be interested in what you're throwing.
Okay.
I don't know if we talked about this before, but there's one river up there. It's called the Fire Steel, and it's famous for its density of trout. It's one of the rivers that doesn't have bull trout. It's a rainbow system. And yeah, there are different, pools there. You can stop and you be like, okay, this looks like a sweet little piece of water. Let's kind of pick it apart. And, maybe you start it with an Adams, start it with a small Adams, and you kind of get guys trying those classic or purple or whatever. And oh yeah, that's working good. Look at that. We get like half a dozen, we like kind of move over a little bit, another half a dozen, and then it kind of cools off. And you're like, okay, well, is that all the fish here? Maybe. Let's try something else. So you throw something bigger on, like a larger caddis or a stonefly or whatever. You can go subsurface, and sure enough, there's like different fish cluing into different food. You can catch another 6 or 10, and then it'll cool off. And then you switch flies, and there's different fish clued on
in the same water. So you just keep switching flies, and you keep doing well. It's by switching flies in the same area.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that like that's my like guiding and fishing approach. Like we're not trying to like catch every fish in the pool.
Yeah.
But yes, it works like that. And the kind of a theory that I've come up with is that fish are a little bit like humans, and they have different favorite foods, right? So you'll have some fish that are, clued in on cheeseburgers, and some that are, vegan. And so you can just kind of like rotate through, and like so on the Fire Steel, for example, on the surface, very, very hard to get like a huge fish. And so you'll have some guys like, they'll be going through all their, they'll be getting real scientific, and they'll be trying to get everything on the top. And it's like, oh, it's just little fish. What's going on? And, if you work long enough, it's really hard because there's so many little fish competing for the food. But, if you can get something down, or if you can crack the code to some different food source, there are really large fish in there as well. It's just such a competitive feeding area.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, and it's always different.
And it's the fish, I think about fish in lakes that are frozen for 9 months out of the year. For those 3 months that ice is off, they get ravenous, right? I mean, you would be too, right? I really haven't had a good meal in 9 months, Yeah, I mean, and your season is what, only 8 weeks long up there?
Something like that. We squeeze in a 9th week sometimes.
Okay.
But yeah, things tend to kind of slow down in August. Yeah, like you say. So in the spring, like just each fish, each species has a different life cycle or annual kind of life history.
Yeah.
But the rainbow in the spring, not long after ice off, they're spawning. So that means there are fish that you want to not target, but it also means that like the party is in the moving water. Like all the fish are in there, and in turn the bull trout are in there, and so you've got like a high density of rainbow in the rivers, and the streams, and then once they're done spawning, or that's kind of tapering off, or most of them have, or whatever, it's like a kind of a revolving window. they're still in there, and there's, insects and blah, 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 and it's quite a lively place. But then as you kind of taper off late July, June, temperatures start increasing, especially last year. And I'm kind of nervous to see what happens this year. But when you have like lower water levels and higher temperatures, the river started having higher temperatures earlier. And so the rainbow will back out. And then, by August, you know, they'll be in the lake and they'll be deep, or they'll be in, depending on the system, but they tend to back out and then maybe poke in again once the waters cool off in the fall.
Okay. And so are you fishing mostly rivers, or are you also, it sounds like you're doing some lake fishing as well.
No, all moving water,
Okay.
lots of inlets and outlets.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like all moving water. Some guys are really excited about still water, and I'm going to plead ignorance. Like, I think maybe still water is something that I'll get into later in life. And there's so many amazing lakes, right? We're using float planes to get around. So every time we take off for land, we're on a lake. And, but no, we're kind of focusing on the moving water, the rivers, the streams, the inlets, and the outlets. And I think it's just because it's fun. That's the kind of fishing that we're into, and that's what the clients are into. And yeah, that's kind of the program.
Okay. So give me a sense of what the experience is like with your lodge. So it's the Spatsizi River Outfitters Lodge. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've been calling it. So Spatsizi River Outfitters is the, kind of the company, and there's two sides to it. There's a hunting side and a fishing side. So I manage the fishing side. The hunting side kind of roams all over the place. They've got different lodges and cabins and spike camps and whatever. The fishing side, the fly fishing program, is run out of our lodge on Last Louis Lake in the headwaters of the Stikine. And so, yeah, I guess the program is you fly up to the headwaters of the Stikine, and then you're there with us for the week, and we explore from there.
Okay. And like what happens, what's a typical day?
Right. So it's not like steelhead angling or salmon fishing, or we're the only ones there, right? So we're not waking up at 4. We're not waking up at 3. I think we do breakfast at 7:30. We'll do coffee's on at 6 for the early risers if you want to come hang out on the dock or whatever, play Sudoku or check out the news or whatever. But we do breakfast at like 7:30, and then at that time we'll have names on the board, right? Kind of classic fishing lodge deal. You got your guides, and then you've got which clients with which guide and where you're going. And sometimes the clients, especially the ones that have been up here before, or maybe ones that have like watched some videos, or it's like a life bucket list thing, they have a few specific things, right? So they'll often pull me aside and at the beginning of the week, and they'll be like, Jake, I really need to get to, or I really want to go fishing it. And then, well, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So I'll try and make that happen. But otherwise, like, I just try and rotate everyone through, and I try and get people heading to different zones to see as much of the park and a variety of fishing as possible. So basically you got breakfast. At that point, you can kind of see like, okay, I'm stuck with Jake for the day, and we're going to.
You switch guides every day. You might have a different guide every day.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, you'll
right.
If you're unlucky, you'll fish with me a couple of times. But yeah, we kind of rotate it, and yeah, just like keep things interesting. And fishing's awesome, Steve, but I'm sure you can agree that it's all the other stuff, right? It's the adventure, it's the people, the whole deal, right? So we kind of mix it up, and that gives us something to talk about at breakfast, right? You're like, okay, sweet. I'm with, Bob's with Dawson. So he starts yakking with him like, whoa, okay, we're going to Tatlatui. Like, I've heard about this place. Like, what's going on in Tatlatui? And then, over breakfast, we kind of download any intel or what's going on, or the best flies, or what we're seeing in terms of aquatic behavior, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, we kind of eat and get prepared. And then we start doing flyouts at around 9. And so depending on where you're going, you hop into one of the planes. We usually got a beaver and a 185 on site, and then a couple of boats as well. So you're either hopping in like the jet boat or the lake boat, or you're hopping in one of the planes. And we usually do pairs. So it'll be like 2 clients and 1 guide, and off you go. It might be a it might be a short or long boat ride. It might be just a little hop to a neighboring lake, or you might be in the plane for 45 minutes,
Oh, really?
depending on what we're doing. But yeah, you head out, you get to your spot. There's all kinds of things trying to mess with you, from weather to mechanics to, or just clients starting to chill out throughout the course of the week. So, it's 9 o'clock sharp ish.
And their clients are late for takeoff. I would not be late. I would be there on time.
Not the first day, not the second day, but it's pretty, the best weeks are pretty casual. And like, yeah, everyone tends to have a, for the most part, everyone seems to fill their boots. But anyway, you have a day angling in whatever, drainage, watershed type of spot that you're headed to that day.
You stay there all day. You stay in that one spot kind of all day, then move around within the spot, but you're there in that drainage for that day.
Well, we've got boats stashed at lots of places. So
okay,
more often than not, you've got a boat there, whether it's like a little kind of metal boat in varying degrees of decay. Some of them are pretty sweet. Some of them are like, I'm not getting in that. But we got boats stashed all over the place. And then if you're on the first fly out, we usually do 2 flyouts, right? So you're on the first flyout, you're going to get a bit of a longer day, but you're on your own, right? It's just you and the guide and maybe a boat, or maybe you're just there until you get picked up at the end of the day. If you're the second flight out, you're usually being guided by the actual pilot of the plane. And so, it's not uncommon where I'm like, okay, you guys are going with Tim, one of the most experienced dudes and crazy, like most talented bush pilots in northern BC. You guys are with Tim. You're going to, whatever. You're going to Kitchener for the day. And then they'll get back. I'll be like, how was Kitchener? It'd be like, oh, it was awesome. We were there for like an hour, but then we flew to Talatui and then we flew over to whatever. It's like, so I don't know. You just do whatever you do. We do lunch out on the river. This might seem kind of crazy. I don't know, depending on where you're from, but we bring a lunch out, but then we also usually, if the clients want, we'll keep a couple of rainbow and we'll cook them up on the bank. And there's a really, really healthy population of rainbow in most of these spots. There's some spots that we won't keep fish, but lots of the spots we do. So we'll do kind of like a shore lunch often, fire conditions permitting, we'll do that, or we've got little stoves. But yeah, we'll just hang out for the day, and then we'll see how punctual we can be getting back to the ranch around, 5 or 6. And then we do, dinner in the lodge and, or out around the fire, and then fire and cocktails and lying about whatever fish you caught. And go to bed and do it again.
Do you have clients that, get antsy, want to go cast off the dock or walk around the lake a little bit and do some fishing?
Oh, 100%. Like almost every week there's like the super frothy guys and
frothy.
Big time. Yeah. Sometimes it's the whole crew for a couple of days, but often there are like, I can think of a few people that have been coming up for years, and they're out every morning and they're out every evening, and they just, it's such an incredible place, and you spend all the energy getting up there, and it's like, I'll sleep when we get home. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna fish. Yeah. I'm always the last guy off the river. So that'd be me. I'd be frothy. I'd be your frothy customer.
You'd be that dude heading out, putting dinner on a plate and putting some beers in your pocket and off in the boat. And
well, I could put some beers in my pocket. Yeah. hang a koozie off my my wading belt and put a beer in there. Yeah, I've been known to do that. That sounds pretty good.
It's pretty. You know what? I have a feeling, Steve, you'd slip right in.
Yeah, maybe you mean float the hat, like fall in. All right, fit in.
I have a feeling you'd slip right into the lake. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's what I think. Yeah. Hey, man, 2's my limit. I'm not a big drinker. I'll drink 2 beers in an evening, and that's it. So unless you've got some really good bourbon, I might taste a little bit of that too.
Right.
All right. So tell me about the wildlife. So I know you've got bears, wolves, caribou, moose, goats. What else you got up there? And what kinds of stuff have you seen? What kind of wildness have you seen?
Yeah, that's kind of the gamut. We don't, it's easier to say what we don't have. We don't have deer. For whatever reason, deer don't make it up that far north. And so maybe because of that, I haven't seen or really heard of big cats, but we do have a lot of moose and caribou. I guess numbers have been dwindling a bit, right? There used to be a lot thicker of both. And yeah, it's an interesting topic for sure of what's going on, but the predator numbers kind of ebb and flow with the moose and caribou numbers. So, where there's moose and caribou, there are also, packs of wolves that vary in numbers. There are also grizzly bears chasing around the ungulates, especially in the spring when calving's going on. And then we've got a ton of black bears too. We've got wolverines, tons of like beavers, all kinds of stuff, like smaller stuff, ermine and squirrels and chipmunks, and tons of birds. I don't want to sound too dorky here, but I love birds, and we've just got like a beautiful array of different types of birds that nest right at.
Birds like eagles, hawks. What do you got?
Yeah, we've got eagles, and we got swallows, we got Arctic terns, we got wood
cool.
ducks, we got swans, we got all different types of like waterfowl, and we've got ptarmigan running around, and warblers. It's a really beautiful place from the standpoint of just taking in nature and a different kind of untouched zone.
Sounds awesome.
But yeah, usually the animals are kind of doing their own thing, but the lodge definitely has an impact on the environment. So we've got, it's constantly a bit of give and take, trying to keep critters out of everything. But last year we had a ermine. I named it Pee-wee Ermine, and it lived in the life jacket kind of storage shed, and then had a family. So Pee-wee Ermine's family lives there, and we keep them around because they eat all the lemmings and the mice and stuff. Then we've got, squirrels causing havoc constantly, and bears. Like bears is the big one, right? And like, so this June, I don't know what's going to happen. The place gets locked up for the winter. I guess it gets checked on once. The Browns, a family that helps us up there and have been working at the lodge for a long time, they go up in the winter, land on the lake on skis and do firewood, get that sorted. So they check on it in the winter. And so maybe sometimes I'll get a call or a text or word that a bear's done some damage. But more often it's right in the spring before we get there. I don't know why, but the hunting camps seem to get it worse, where grizzly bears will just completely break in and completely destroy a cabin.
Really?
We've had our kitchen ripped up since I've been there. But yeah, the bears, there's tons of bears around, and they're always coming into camp, and we're always trying to keep them away. So it's a bit of fun.
Have you had bears come into camp when you've had clients around? And what do you guys do?
Well, we've got a secret weapon, Steve. Her name's Becky Jo, and she's our guest services manager. She's, just a sweet, pretty young thing, just a lovely young lady. You wouldn't think she'd be too dangerous, but when the bears come around, she's our secret weapon. So she's firing warning shots and chasing them off. And
is she? Okay.
Yeah, she's pretty hardcore. And well, it's sort of wild. Like when we're gone for the day, all the guides are gone, all the pilots are gone, and so there's often there's our chef and Becky Jo. And so she protects the camp. Last year we had bears, a lot of black bears coming into camp, and they were climbing in the boats. That I don't know why, but they were really curious about the boats, and they'd come and climb in the boats. So
like walk out on the dock and then jump in a boat.
Okay, so the water levels go down throughout the year, and it makes a little kind of narrow beach around all of these lakes, right?
Okay.
And so all of the animals, they tend to get to the shoreline, and then they just follow the beach. So they're all circling these lakes. So you can always see different tracks. You'll see like caribou tracks being followed by wolves, or you can see, grizzlies following moose calves or whatever. But the bears, we've got a spotting scope in the lodge. We're right on the lake, and we got a spotting scope. So best thing to do in the morning, right? You get a cup of coffee and you start scoping the lake. Often you see bears swim in the lake, or goats cruising around on the mountain. But you can see bears coming for a long time, right? So you'll be like, oh yeah, there's one coming, he's coming down this bank, coming down that bank, and
like coming our way, like eventually he's going to get to camp probably.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh. They're just working their way, or it's like, okay, mom and a cub. Oh, we got like a couple 2-year-olds, whatever. And we've got a few dogs usually in camp, so they do their job. But I would say Becky Jo is more effective. She's quite humble about it. Like if you ever get home, you're like, you get back to the camp, you're like, oh, how is the day here? Oh yeah, I've had a couple bears, but other than that, all good. Yeah, everything was
Yeah.
great. Like, oh yeah, okay. But I kind of got like a sneak peek at it. We had one of our longtime guests. His name's Ross, lovely dude from New York, and he was sort of a little tired, fished out by I think like day 5. He's like, I'm gonna take a break, camp day. Maybe I'll fish around here, but I'm just gonna chill out for the day. Sweet, right on, enjoy yourself. Got home, we're having dinner that day or that night, and everyone's like, oh Ross, like how was the day here? You know, like what did you do in camp all day? And he was just like eyes like this big. He's like,
Is he eating a bear tenderloin for dinner? And you guys are like, where'd you get that?
no, we did no. Well, no, we weren't eating a bear tenderloin. We were eating our, might have been, I don't know actually. The secrets that go on when we're out, I don't know. But no, Ross is like to the fellas like, oh yeah, these 2 bears came around the corner here and they got in the boat, you know, like, and they're wrestling around. Everyone's like, what? And because he was sitting on the deck, like within, you know, whatever, 40 feet of the boat. Okay, what did you do? It's like, well, I didn't do anything. Becky Joe came out. What did Becky Joe do? Well, Becky Joe had a rifle. Becky Joe had a rifle. Everyone's like, you know, full attention. All conversation stops.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
what happened?
I want to hear this.
Well, Becky Joe started shooting warning shots, you know, off like 4 feet behind it, and sent them running, and they haven't been back. It's like, really? So, yeah. So Becky Joe is our secret weapon with the bears.
She's it.
Yeah. And I mean, then there's other like responsible, less fun story things to do. You know, you're always trying to be careful with your food and things that smell, and keep camp immaculate so that you're not attracting anything. Right? We're visitors in their home, so we try and act accordingly. But yeah, it does make it exciting. You're always, more often than not, you're seeing some kind of animal when you're out for the day, and that's all part of the fun.
Do you ever see wolves?
So I guess not up there. I've never seen a wolf up there. I've seen lots of prints and
Interesting.
heard them. And I guess I'd be like maybe one of the few people that could say that I haven't seen wolves up there. Everyone else has.
Yeah.
But when I first got up there were wolves, and there was a lot of wolf sign, and you could hear them, and like it was a problem. But then it seemed to sort of taper off. Like there was a decline in moose and caribou, and there was also a decline in wolves. And so for like 5 years, I didn't see or hear. I saw like a couple of prints, but definitely not around our lodge and in this upper like kind of basin, like our home basin in the upper Stikine. I didn't see any wolves or nothing. But then last year, the night before I went home, I was lying in bed in this yurt, and I heard them go in. I heard them up in Tuaton howling. This was the season before last. Last year, there's wolf sign everywhere.
Oh, they're
and
coming
you
back.
hear them. Yeah, they're back. So it just kind of ebbs and flows.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Want to shift gears a little bit, Jay. What's the history of this area? Because I know there's a couple of interesting stories about this area, isn't there? So it was founded by who? And they built a cabin on the fire steel, I believe. Is that right?
Oh, right. Yeah. It's kind of a legendary story. The Collingwood brothers. They weren't the first outfitters up there. There was an outfitter before them, Tommy Walker and his wife Marion. They were the first outfitters to set up shop in the Spatsizi region on Coldfish Lake, which is north west of where we're at, but also in the Stikine drainage. They set up shop, and then I don't know, a decade or so later, a new wave, a couple other outfitters showed up, and Ray and Reg, the Collingwood brothers, they set up shop in the upper Stikine and in the fire steel. And yeah, story goes, you know, they were looking for a spot to set up this fishing and hunting outfitting business. They got some intel, the fire steel. You got to go to the fire steel. They got dropped off there in this wide spot in the river where float planes can safely land. And they just, you know, kind of wandered through the bush, you know, started fishing at the spot that we still go today. It's called 126, and it's infamously named after the amount of fish that were caught on the same amount of casts, 126.
Really?
And so right there, they're like, okay, well, I guess this is what we're doing for our entire life. I think they were in their 20s.
So they caught 126 fish on 126 casts.
I think Reg did, which is crazy because Reg is, I don't know, if Reg can catch 126 fish, that's pretty good.
You're surprised by that, huh?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's
but
great.
He's more the hunting enthusiast. He's pretty humble. He's the first to make fun of his casting and fishing, but sounds like he did good that day. So they were hooped for the rest of their life. They were outfitters in the Spatsizi, and they just had they earned an incredible reputation in the hunting and fly fishing worlds, and became sort of regional legends up here. So I grew up knowing about the Collingwoods, and if
Oh,
you're into
really?
fly fishing, you know about Ray, and you know about Ray's daughter Carrie, who now runs a steelhead lodge of her own on the Babine, and they're just this kind of infamous family up here. And so I was always
Yeah,
eager
cool.
to to be a part of it. But eventually they built a second place and a main lodge, and it was a series of steps because it was a park by that time, and there's regulations and
Sure.
yada yada. But eventually they were able to build the main lodge that we're at now, Spatsizi Park Lodge, and that's on Last Louis Lake.
How about that? What's the story of the outlaw that visited you guys? I don't know how many years ago that was. What's the story of this guy?
Oh yeah, right,
Gunnanoot? Simon
right.
Gunnanoot?
Yes. So I may get some of the details wrong here, but there's an infamous tale. It sort of sounds like I'm lying because I'm a fisherman and
I haven't heard you yet. I'll let you know.
okay. So the largest manhunt in BC history was after this fellow named Simon Gunnanoot, and yeah, there's a little mini documentary about it, and you can read about it. But essentially, there was a murder. An RCMP or a mounted police was murdered in Hazelton. When would this have been? I don't know. Years back. Anyway, but not too long ago, like 70s, 80s.
Okay.
And Simon Gunnanoot got pinned on Simon Gunnanoot. And so he's like, no, I don't think so. I did not do that. I'm out of here. And he split with his family, had a wife, and he might have had kids on the run, but he had a couple of kids anyway. And he took his family on the run for years, and they just kept roaming. They went back to, kind of the Spatsizi region, and they were up in Iskut, and they were out kind of in the Arctic headwaters, and they spent a lot of time right where our lodge is as well. And unfortunately, one of his sons passed away while they were on the run, but it must have happened at Last Louis, because there's a grave site right behind, well, a little ways back behind the lodge. Got Simon Gunnanoot's son's grave.
Oh, his son. Okay.
Yeah, and then his legacy. Eventually, he was acquitted. He had a lawyer that he was somehow communicating with. This is quite a while before Starlink, as you can imagine. So somehow he was getting message back and forth, and he had a lawyer representing him on the back in civilization. And eventually, after many years on the run, he was acquitted. And something kind of fun. There's a pass near us, just east of us, called Lawyers Pass, which I never knew what the name was for, but one of our pilots, Keith, was filling me in this past season that when Simon Gunnanoot finally was acquitted, he wanted to say thank you to his lawyer. So he invited him up on this kind of hunting, whatever, fishing trip. And they didn't make it too far, but they made it in a bit to this pass. So they called it Lawyers Pass.
How about that?
So yeah, there's these legendary kind of tales of the folks that have been there, and there's still a lot of sign, whether it's grave sites or old cabin sites or the trails that folks were walking back before roads and cars, and before they were all basically moved out of there, that we try and maintain, and more importantly maintain the story of, and continue to share that knowledge and try and preserve it. And there's a few great books written about Spatsizi from different perspectives, and and there's still some elders that lived there as children in these communities. There used to be some small communities near us. Now there's nothing, but there is a little town, I don't know, probably 10 kilometers as the crow flies, called Metzentan, near a lodge. No one lives there now, but some kids that used to live there are now elders up in Iskut and the Dease Lake area. So yeah, there's a lot of history, and I'm still learning a lot of it myself, but it's a big part of the tapestry of what makes that place special and
pretty cool.
Important.
So what was life like growing up in Smithers?
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't, I liked it. It's a small town, right? So as a kid, there's lots to do outdoor stuff. There's the ski hill, and there's, I never really even got into fly fishing. I thought that was an old man's game, and I liked fishing, but I didn't. And I saw these dudes coming in and doing the steelhead thing, but it didn't really grab my attention. But yeah, there was lots of fun stuff to keep you busy, and just like an amazing sense of community in Smithers. I appreciate it now coming back. Like all of the people that would have been young adults there, they all know you, and everyone's looking out for each other. It's one of those communities where everyone's kind of co-raising all the kids. And
oh, really? Okay. Everybody knows everybody. Like if you get in trouble, the whole town knew. Is that right?
100%. Oh, 100%. There's no secrets up here, for better or worse. For worse, it's just for worse.
For worse, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great place, man. It's like, if you're into nature, if you're into fishing, if you're whatever, it's a beautiful spot to be, and just an amazing type of people live up here. The kind of people that come here and stay here are the kind of people that are passionate about it and want to make it better and share it. So,
right.
I'm biased, but
maybe a little bit, but that's all right.
I think it's the best place on earth.
No kidding. But you didn't fish at all as a kid, or you just didn't fly fish as a kid?
I just didn't fly fish. Like I really liked fishing.
Okay.
But I don't know. My parents would take me out to fishing derbies, and we'd do troll wedding bands, and I'd fish whatever with worms, like all things you do as a kid, and blue foxes and stuff. But it wasn't really till after high school where I started like mucking around with fly fishing. And as every kid is, supposed to do, when you grow up in a small town, you leave immediately when you graduate. So I took off to different places, and along the way, every place I ended up in kind of seemed like a fishing zone, actually, whether it's Kamloops or Whistler, Jasper, Jackson Hole. And so I started picking up fly fishing and exploring all these other places and getting more and more into it. Yeah. And the more kind of passionate and immersed in fly fishing I got, the more I realized that like I need to get home. Like I live in
I lived in paradise. The best, right?
What am I doing? So, long story short, I came home. My sisters are here, my parents are here, and I've got a great family, and we're in this like really fortunate sweet spot where everyone's healthy, and we got new nephews and whatever. And so I've come here and I've met Miguel, Emma, and just like jumped all into fly fishing, and
you're all in.
Yeah, that's kind of how she went.
So where did you meet Emma?
I met Emma. Emma is actually how I got the job at Spatsizi, so that's a good question.
I know the answer to this, but nobody else does, so go ahead.
Right, okay, I queued you up. I met Emma. I'd moved back home to Smithers, and I'd kind of been bumming around. I was probably, I don't know, 30 or something, and I'd moved back into my parents' basement, and
oh man,
yeah, and I guess I was. I was working and stuff. I didn't see any problem with my position in life. But after a year and a half, or I don't know, maybe 2 years, my sister Janelle came up to me. She's like, "Hey, do you want me to like set you up with a friend?" And
get you out of that basement.
I was like, Janelle, what are you talking about? Like, I don't need to set up with a friend. Like, look at me. I'm awesome.
Yeah, man, I'm cool, man. I live in my parents' basement. There's nothing wrong here.
You can't live in our parents' basement when you're in your 30s, man. It's like, yeah, so it's a humbling anyway, Janelle works fast. I think it was like 2 days later, I was invited to go skiing with my brother and my brother-in-law and a buddy, and the buddy's sister was Emma. So up came my ski crew, and there was Emma with the ski crew. I was like, oh, okay, wow, okay, here we go. And so we went ski touring. We had a good time, and Emma is a chef, and she'd been working at all of these like famous fishing lodges, and so we got to yakking about that when we were skiing together, and she'd been, working down on the Dean River, which I'd always wanted to go. And she'd be, working at these lodges on the Bulkley. And then, it came up like, she cooks at Spatsizi with Ray Collingwood. I was like, no way. And she's like, yeah, you know what? I think they actually might need a guide this year. And
I'm in.
Yeah, for like at least 2 reasons, I am in. Yeah. And so, and you know what? Before the pandemic, the whole fishing scene up here, whether you wanted to be a guide or whether you wanted to be an outfitter or whether you wanted to be a chef, everything was locked up and all the positions were tight, and you really needed to know someone to get into it. Okay. And it just so happened that I lucked out there meeting Emma, and she introduced me to Ray, and the rest is history.
How about that? So I thought maybe you met her up there, but she actually just told you, come on up, I'm the chef and I might be able to get you a job. And it all worked
well, she
out.
said I was the chef, and I yeah, I connected some dots and I was like, I got to get there.
All right. So let me ask you this. This is, I always got to throw in a couple of deep questions. So you look back at yourself as a teenager. What advice would you give yourself as a teenager looking back?
That's an interesting one. I'd probably say, I'd probably say not to take decisions so seriously, just to keep moving forward, follow curiosity. If you're curious about something, if you enjoy something, if you're having fun with something, or you feel like something's important, tug on that yarn, follow that path, and don't overthink it. Just wake up, open the door, go outside, and move forward, because you learn lessons. No matter what you do, you learn lessons. You learn what you like, you learn what you don't like, and you find the next thing, right? It's just steps
Yeah.
bringing you in a path. And you can sit at home worrying about which way you want to go, or trying to architect some master plan to get to where you want to go. But the more I've just let go and acted, as opposed to thinking about stuff, the better experience I've ended up having. So
Yeah, that's great advice. I love that.
yeah, just do stuff.
There's actually a book out there called The Progress Principle. And the whole thing is that people are the biggest motivational factor for people in business is making progress. And lack of progress is the biggest demotivator. And you think about it, like what you said, like, I'm not just going to sit here. I'm going to keep moving. It's
Right.
kind of like how I fish. I don't stay in one spot to do for very long. I always yelled at my buddies, keep moving. You've cast in there 30 times. They're not
I
going to
love
take
that.
it. Keep moving,
I think that's a great way to fish. Sounds like we'd be
Yeah.
good fishing buddies. I love just moving like that.
Keep
And
moving.
yeah, I think it's good advice, right? Like action precedes motivation. It's a muscle that you can build up.
Yeah.
And if you're good at, waking up and doing stuff, like you build in that work ethic and you build in that routine. I'm
Yeah.
not saying I'm a master at it, but yeah, just ocean's the lotion. You got to keep moving, one foot in front of the other. And life's a fun ride if you go for it. So you got to get on.
Get going. Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, another question. What's the best piece of advice you've gotten about managing a lodge?
Best piece of advice about managing a lodge. I guess I've had a couple of amazing mentors. Like I got into guiding a little later in life, and the first family that I started guiding for, I'm going to answer this the long way, but I guess I decided I wanted to guide later in life. Like I was, coming up on 30 or so. And I went for a fishing trip with some buddies, and they were all guides, and I was, slugging it out, trying to do business stuff. And all my buddies that were fishing guides were just having a hoot, and they were way better anglers than me. And they all knew how to drive jet boats and raft, and they'd all been to all these crazy spots. And so, throughout the course of this fishing trip over the weekend, I was like, man, what am I doing? This is what's up. And so I remember dropping just kind of a little hint. I think it laid around a fire one night, like, oh man, I wouldn't mind guiding. You guys think like, what do you, anyway, so immediately, like good friends, I just got completely razzed and torn apart, and everyone's like, oh, you
Really?
can't, whatever,
Oh, really?
you can't even cast, man, blah, blah, blah. But after that fishing trip, everyone reached out and sent, little leads like, hey,
Apologized.
no. But like with love and good intention, like, well, if you want to start, this would be a good place. These would be good guys to start with. Don't go here. Don't go here.
Huh.
This guy might be looking. This guy might be looking. So
Okay.
I narrowed down like,
yeah.
So I took it very cautiously where I wanted to start guiding, and I ended up getting sort of a dream job. If in terms of steelhead guiding, my first steelhead job was for the Lee family, for Tom Lee on the Kispiox River. And it's just an incredible lodge, which just recently has kind of finished, and the rod days have been sold. But it was in the family for multiple generations, going back to actually Spatsizi roots. And Tom was an incredible mentor in what he said, but more what he didn't say. Just watching the way that he would prepare for the season, and watching how he would interact with the clients, and watching the fine but definite line he would ride between being extremely professional and extremely detail oriented, but then also being just an absolute hoot to hang out with, and the last guy up around the fire, and just so I got to watch firsthand and let some kind of muscle memory come through osmosis, and
Yeah,
just
sure.
being part of the team with Tom Lee at Hook and Line, and with his dad Wilfred. I guess it was to be extremely prepared and be extremely professional and have everything thought out before people show up. So worst case scenarios don't happen, but
Yeah,
if they do, you can handle them and you know what to do. But then once the guests show up, just have fun and enjoy the experience.
that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's got a different, every outfitter and every lodge manager and every guide has a different personality. And that's part of the fun of it, right? We're all kind of misfits, anglers included and the clients included. And part of the fun of it is just bringing your authentic self to the experience, and
Yeah,
enjoying other people and what they bring. And
yeah,
I don't know if I had to mold myself into someone different to do this, I wouldn't do it at all. And if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't do it.
yeah. Good for you. All right, back to fishing. What are your top confidence patterns? 2, 3, 4 confidence patterns. What do they always have with you flies?
Okay. Always have with you flies, 4 or 5. Okay. First one, parachute Adams, like pretty small, classic. Another dry fly I always have is a Tom Thumb, as
A
crazy
Tom
as it
Thumb.
sounds.
Tom Thumb. I don't even know what that is. Tom
Oh
Thumb?
yeah, check it out. It's just like deer hair, like the most simple tie you've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, it looks like a 2-year-old tied it, but and they do them in black or natural kind of brown deer hair. Tom Thumb, like if you don't know where you're going, stimulators, right? That's
Stimmy
another,
shop.
like the spoon of flies. But then okay, so can I have 6?
We'll let you have 6. Yeah.
I love foam flies. Like I love big hoppers.
You mentioned that. Okay.
Yeah, it's just fun, right? Like you're not gooping them up every 2 seconds. And
Yeah. You keep fishing.
yeah, and probably, I don't know, for sure most of the time, but like maybe 80-90% of the time that I'm up in Spatsizi, I've got a big like purple and black foam hopper, and I break the hook off, and that's what I fish with.
Okay. Just tease them. Yeah.
Well, yeah, just having fun, right? I don't know.
Right.
Cast, you still find them, you still get some pulls, and they jump, and I don't know. Like I still like to see the odd fish and bring it in and give it a smooch or put it on the frying pan, but like most of the time, I just have like a hookless foam thing, and
Really?
even talked a few clients into doing it too. Okay, so foam. So I do the Adams, Tom Thumb, a foam fly. We also have a sort of a larger pattern. We've got a Royal Madam X, which looks
Sure.
like kind of a, yeah, you've probably seen that,
Yeah.
like a Royal Wolf on steroids, some rubber legs and a nice big parachute so you can see it. That seems to be a really great attractant, like regardless of where you are. And then you always got to bring like a couple subsurface things just in case. I bring a, I don't know, I'd hate to admit it, but I'll bring like a black leech, like a little black leech, and then some kind of little nymph, like a very small nymph. If I wasn't in Spatsizi, I'd say like my last fly I'd put in my like very select box would be like a prince nymph.
A prince. Okay. Yeah.
But up there in Spatsizi, like a small green or blue, like really tiny nymph. We've got lots of like scuds, and Ray calls them shrimp, but just like green and kind of turquoise scuds. And so if everything's turned off completely, yeah, that saved me a bunch of times.
No egg patterns.
No, nah.
Not going to do that.
Like whatever. I don't want to like come off like a snob, like whatever. I don't care. But Steve, like I like fishing, but like if I wanted to catch a bunch of fish, I'd like be checking a blue fox or like trolling or fishing an egg. We wouldn't be fishing like dries or like flies
You
with no
want to
hooks.
make it interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm up there for the adventure and the people and the interactions, and like I love fish. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, like I guess I grew up also like the fly fishing world that I'm in is very much like anti-egg kind of,
Oh, really? Interesting.
or like we all know that eggs work. Like, yep, eggs work, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like the evolution of starting with the worm and then eventually you get to the fly. And yeah. I'm rambling on, but no.
I'm going to apologize to all you BC folks that I brought up the egg pattern. So there you
No,
go.
hey, there's lots of folks fish eggs here, and that's all cool. Lots of, you know what? Okay, so I'm acting all hoity-toity like I don't fish eggs. Egg sucking leech and like lots of the intruders we fish for steelhead have like an egg head.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's you got to do that, right? Okay, you
Yeah.
mentioned cooking trout for shore lunch. How do you like to cook your trout for a shore lunch?
Oh, I don't know if we have time to get into this. This is a
You get
this is
1
a
minute.
hot
That's
topic,
it.
Steve.
Oh, is it? Okay. All right.
No, okay, I'll tell you. Well, everyone's got their different method, right? Some people do it in the frying pan. When Emma's the chef, she'll often send me out with a little cheater pack, some burnt butter or some different herbs or spices, whatever. We'll do it in the pan sometimes
Cheater
if it's
pack.
like,
Yeah.
if we got to be fast about it, just turn it on the
Yeah.
stove. But my favorite way to cook the fish is I'll make a little frying pan out of Arctic birch or whatever kind of like willow or whatever I can find. And I'll weave up a quick little frying pan. And then I'll collect like a little bushel, just quickly chop a bunch of Arctic birch, or there's a few different kind of deciduous shrubs up there that have a really nice aromatic smoke. And I'll get a little bushel of that, and we'll do a quick kind of fire roast smoke with the trout, and that's super fun and delicious.
All right, now well, you got to back up. How do you make a frying pan out of a piece of birch?
Actually, I made kind of a silly video about it on my Instagram. You can check it out.
Did you?
But you get a nice long one.
Yeah.
You get a nice long, kind of like older one.
Old one what? Piece of birch?
Like a piece of Arctic birch or willow.
Okay.
Something with a bunch of branches on it. And then you cut the whole thing off and you just take the top and you loop it around. And then, you can kind of cut a little slot in it with a knife and shove the end through. And then you just start weaving the branches back and forth. And then from there, I grab like a few more sticks and kind of thread them in crossways. And before you know it, it's like pretty skookum little dish. And
really,
you can chuck, you can chuck like whatever, 4 or 6 little fillets on there. And it's kind of fun, right?
So it's almost like a grill.
It's like a little hand grill. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm thinking frying pan, like you got some butter. Like, how could that even like hold butter? But it's more like a grill.
Keeping the fish on there is like it's a black belt technique, Steve. And I'm not,
okay. All right. Six Sigma black belt guy on fish cooking trout on a fire up there. That sounds great. That's super cool. I'd love to get a picture of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you send me a picture of that? And that and maybe a couple of shots at some of your top confidence patterns, because some of these I think people have heard of, but some maybe not. So people love that.
Okay, I'll deep dig into the secret stash for you. Yeah, some for your show notes.
Okay, now this is a loaded question, but how's the food in the lodge? You better say good things.
Well, first of all, my wife Emma's the chef sometimes.
Exactly.
If it's not her, then it's often her sister Jen Anderson, and those girls are amazing chefs. And yeah, it's one of it can really save your bacon in a fishing situation, right? If you don't get out because of weather, or if the fishing's kind of slow.
Food's good.
You always know if you can come home to a 5-star meal, then you're laughing.
They stop complaining right away, right?
Yeah, but it's incredible. It's too fancy. We've got to fly in everything, right? We've got to fly in every egg and every stick of butter and every fork and nail. So it's quite a mission to fly in all our food each week. But this is no hunting spike camp. We do like full kind of family style buffets in the morning.
Oh, nice.
Whether it's bennies or different like sausage and bacon and omelets, and like there's a full spread and oatmeal and toast, if whatever. And then for lunch, kind of told you about that a little bit, a little more simple sandwich and trout and maybe soup if it's raining kind of deal out on the water. And then for dinner, it's a full-on spectacle. We do appy hour, an hour before dinner. So I can't recall right now. It's winter, so it's like it's far away from the sea. I'm kind of getting stoked for the season just chatting with you. But we do appies an hour before dinner, so it gives everyone time to have a cocktail or whatever, a glass of water and some delicious appetizers, and sort of catch up and wait for the stragglers. There's always stragglers, just the nature of the adventures. But then for dinner, it's a 3-course deal, and there's a starter and a main and a dessert. And it's crazy. It's like five star deal.
It sounds like I would gain weight if I went up there for a week.
100%. A week's not bad, but if you do a whole season, I'll tell you from experience, you can roll out of there pretty easily.
Well, yeah, getting married to a 5-star chef. I mean, you're doomed, man. You are not
Oh,
going to die
I've
a skinny
yeah.
guy. You're going to
Well,
be.
what about you? What's going on over there? You must, you
Uh,
must be,
my wife's a good cook, but I stay, I work out, all week long, so I keep it off. It's getting harder and harder the older you get, though. You got to know that, right, Jake? It's a little harder.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm already starting to experience that. So
Yeah, it's like, man,
I
what
don't
happened to my solar? I haven't seen my solar plexus since 1985. What's that all about?
know. Some guys can skip dessert. I've seen those guys. I don't know what's wrong
Yeah, I
with them,
never
but
skip dessert. That's my problem.
no.
Dessert, maybe a little cocktail too. I kind of like that
There
too,
you go.
So anyway,
Right on.
hey man, great having you on the show, Jake. Really fun talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks a lot. And feel like kind of weird. I just talked about myself the whole time, but
That's what you do on podcast. You're my guest,
that's how this works.
right? Yeah, it's about you, man. You're the star of the show. So anyway,
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. And just before, you had me on, and once you first reached out, I listened to a bunch of the episodes, and I just really love what you're doing. And it's a
thanks.
cool, it's a really neat opportunity for folks, including myself, from around the world to have these, kind of parachute into completely
Yeah.
different worlds. Like we're all of us anglers from around the world, from these different destinations. We all share a passion, and I'm sure many similar aspects to what make us tick and what keep us smiling. But we also live in these like completely different worlds. So thanks for doing what you do, and keep doing it.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, we all have that gene, and it is a gene, because I've tried to convince people that don't have it to come fishing, and they're not interested. And I'm like, I don't get you, but that's okay. Just one less guy I'm going to be bumping into when I'm fishing. So anyway, all right. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to look into the lodge and learn a little bit more?
I think we're just spatsizi.com. There's two sides there, but the fishing side's us, and there's contact information there to get a hold of the office. We've got, it's a bit of a wait list to get in, but you never know, things can happen. But yeah, there's Jackie, our admin manager, AKA the person that keeps everything moving and organized. And she will be happy to answer any questions you have, and get you on the list.
Lady, is it? That's not the bear lady, is it?
No, that's Becky Joe.
That's Becky Joe. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So she won't.
Jackie runs everything until you get into camp, and then Becky Joe is the boss.
All right. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Very good.
But
So go online.
Spatsizi, and I think you can find us on the gram, and on you can find us on the gram, and you can find us on the website. And
very good.
Yeah.
Awesome. I wish you extraordinary success in all your adventures to follow, folks. And thank you for listening. We'll be sure to post Jake's information on the Destination Angler show notes, and pictures, hopefully, of some of those top fly picks, and maybe that frying pan from a piece of birch. There you go. That'd be interesting. We'll put that out on Facebook and Instagram if he'll let me. Folks, you can always DM me or email me with comments and suggestions at saig50@gmail.com. And if you like the show, please share it with a buddy. As always, our music is by our brothers Fountain. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again soon. Tight lines, everybody.
Well, I'll go from the land to the shining sea. But I know there's more to life than what the eye can see.